Hello and welcome to the Hello and welcome to the No Stakes podcast. My name is Amanda Taylor. I am your host. And today I just want to welcome you to this brand new adventure that we're going on here. The No Stakes podcast is or was created to talk about life. Like I've noticed, I don't know about you, but since 2020, life been life in a little bit. So as I've been nosy and been on the internet and just, being in everybody's business, I realize there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about, we should be talking about. And so I want to use this as a platform for us to come together and just kind of explore life, talk about it, make fun of it, process it, maybe share what we're going through, what we hope to achieve, and hopes of inspiring each other. And with that said, I'd like to welcome my guest for today, Miss Michelle Daniels. Michelle is the owner of Mind, Body, and Spirit Women's Wellness, LLC, based now out of Durham, North Carolina? Raleigh?
Night night though.
Nightdale, which is, we black, so what's it close to? What city are we supposed to
It's
know?
close to Raleigh.
All right, Raleigh in the house. All right. Yes, based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I have had the personal pleasure of knowing Michelle for some years now. It
Yeah.
feels, the time flew, but some years now. And I've seen her personally grow and evolve and transform and just do so many wonderful and amazing things and just witness her being a wonderful human being. So I am honored to have her. Um, and I'd like you to join me in welcoming Miss Michelle Daniels to the chat. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm so proud of you for starting this.
Well, thank you. I'm a little bit nervous, but stepping out on faith. This is in God's hands, and it's been
That's
nagging
right.
at me, which means I need to do it. So here we are.
That's
Um,
right.
so today's theme and what we're going to be talking about as we talk about life is drawing a blank, Michelle. What did I say the theme was going to be?
It is going to be your journey may not be my journey, and following your dreams.
Yes, yes, it is. And this is me stumbling through mine, but I'm following it. Showed up. Yes, today's topic is about following your dreams. And before we get started with Michelle's story, which is a really, really impactful, incredible one, um, we want to talk about this. I came up with this new concept, right? Called toilet soup. And I'm sure it is an entirely gross name. And you're like, what in the devil is toilet soup? So let me tell you, toilet soup is, how kids, when they're trying to be helpful, they see like mom and dad are sick or, they want to give you something to eat and play kitchen. And they reach for the only source of water that they can, which is usually the toilet. If they're a little taller, it's usually the toilet, right? And they're so proud and they're so happy of this toilet soup that they're giving you, and you just look at it and smile and don't take it, but appreciate this well-intentioned gift that they're giving you. That's toilet soup. So, have you gotten any advice that you or seen any advice that you would consider toilet soup?
So that's this is a really good segment. So recently I have begun to practice Islam, and I started following a lot of uh, women that practice Islam, and I've been seeing like the comments, like people just commenting and putting sometimes very mean things, and um, it's pertaining to wearing your head covering. Some women are Muslim, but they don't wear a covering, or they are Muslim, but they wear makeup and, nail polish and things like that. And I see people are bashing these women for doing this. And I couldn't help but, be disappointed in people, because everybody's journey to get into whatever they believe in, whatever they do, is not your journey. So I can't look at somebody else and say, well, you should be doing this, because maybe that's not their journey. Maybe they're not there yet. But that's not to say that they won't get there. But we are not, that's not my place to judge and say that you should be, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, because what does that make me if I'm doing that, so that led me into, thinking like, we need to be kinder to each other, especially if you are practicing a faith and you want people to be called to it. You can't be so harsh to people sometimes. And so I guess that would be the toilet soup that I've seen.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I recognize a lot of that and have very similar views, though we are on different faith walks. I am going to take a moment and call out the walk that I was once on, the Christian community. And
Hmm.
I noticed that there are very similar restrictions and helpful suggestions that actually wind up contradicting the very tenets and intent and purpose of that faith practice itself.
Hmm.
So, with you, the is it what type of people are you noticing the most are giving out this advice? Is it people within the faith? Is it people that
So it's people within the faith, and I mean, I get it. I understand where they're coming from, but that's not, you don't approach it that way. And you don't, it's like pointing your finger. Like, you can't come at people that way. And I always say that I didn't become this way overnight. Like,
mm,
it was a process. It was a journey. So sometimes you have to go through the journey. You have to walk that journey in order to get to where you're going to be. And I don't know what these people's journey is going to be. I don't know if eventually they will. Maybe
mm,
they won't, but that's not to say, that's not for me to come on and start bashing you because you're not doing it. Um, and it has been women and it's sadly, women that are coming after other women
mm.
in that regard. And I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's helpful. So that's why I said it should be in the toilet, because it's not helpful. There's better ways to come, to say things, but to go on people's pages and start bashing them and calling them names and stuff. I don't.
So, oh, excuse me. With that in mind, how would you, what's the word I'm looking for? How would you reframe it for the people that someone who isn't as secure in themselves and is still like learning and discovering how to go about their faith walk? What would you say to them to counterbalance or counteract the toilet soup here that you just identified?
What I would say is prayer. That's number one. Pray that your path that you're following is the path that you are meant to be following, not what everybody else around you is wanting you to follow. I'm the only person in my immediate family that did turn to Islam. So it was, for me, that's my journey. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to follow it because I was called to it. But everyone has their own path that they have to follow. And you can't let what everybody says impact you, because if you start letting what everyone says impact you, you're not going to live a fulfilling life. So that would be my advice.
Well, excuse me. I agree. I think that that's fantastic. I don't think I would have phrased it any differently. So kudos to you. If I
Thank
had a
you.
little round of applause sound effect, I get it. I'm gonna get there. Small but humble beginnings. Okay, humble beginnings. But when I
Thank
get
you.
that
I'm gonna get you a clapper. You know the little clapper?
oh, you know what? You just started something because I go to Five Below. If I find a clapper, or even Dollar Tree, because this, if we just had 4th of July, I'm getting a clapper. Thank you. See, sometimes it gives you ideas and in the places you least expect. Problem solved. All right. So again, thank you for that toilet soup. So to recap, um, to the toilet soup itself is basically mind your business. Just don't put your mouth on it. Mind your business. To those that are receiving that advice, just pray about it, turn it over to your higher call, to your higher being, and just follow your purpose. Keep on going. Just keep on moving. And is there
But
anybody?
that's not to say if you see like your brother or your sister doing something that's real bad and you like, I think that's a little bit much.
Right.
Maybe
So
bring it back in a little bit, but
yeah, I was gonna ask you. I was actually gonna ask you if any
reel it
like
back in a little
caveat.
bit.
Yeah, you everybody knows you can't be out here just slapping people and acting crazy. Like but makeup, mind your business. That ain't got nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with it. So moving on, thank you. Speaking of journeys and your newfound, well, not so newfound now. You've been walking it for a little while now, but you're, you're walking your journey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us who Michelle is.
So, as Amanda said, I am the owner of Mind, Body, and Spirit Women's Wellness. And I started this company in 2020. And unbeknownst to me, I was writing things in a notebook about things that I wanted to do. And it probably started around 2019. I was writing out all these goals and things that I wanted to accomplish. And little by little, I started doing it, and I didn't realize that that was what I was doing. So initially, when the pandemic hit, I wanted to have a space where women would be able to come together and talk about all different types of topics and what might be bothering us, and just a space where it's just us. So I got a Zoom account and I got a subscription because I remember initially they was giving 40 minutes, and I was finding that you get cut off after that 40 minutes. That's it.
Oh
So,
man, when I tell you that 40 minutes, oh man, how many times have we gotten cut off?
so I was like, nope, got to get a subscription. So I got a Zoom subscription and I started Women's Wellness Wednesdays. And that's actually how I met Amanda. Amanda was a guest of a former colleague of mine, and she invited her to come on to the Women's Wellness Wednesday. And it started as once a month, the last Wednesday of the month. And I would have different speakers that will come on and talk about different experiences, their businesses, and it's still going. We recently had our last one in the end of June, but that's how that portion started. And that was something that I wrote in a notebook in 2019.
So
And I
let's
looked at it.
can I pause you for a second? Let's just stop there for a minute and explore uh how you got there. So you mentioned that you had this auctioning, these ideas in 2019. Um what kind of incepted that? What was going on around that time that inspired you to start thinking about life and what you wanted to do moving forward?
So, as I said, we all have our journeys. And at the time, I was going through a rough, kind of a rough period of my life. And I was about to be going through a divorce. I was about to be separated, and I was in this program, and the foundations are what drew me to the sisterhood aspect. And when I went through that program, I thought about it and I said, you know what? I like this. I like the sisterhood aspect. I like that we're learning things from each other, business owners. And I felt that I needed to, for whatever reason, I needed to start some sort of sister circle.
Mhm.
And I started it with just my family, my colleagues, and then I would ask them, hey, bring somebody, and that's how that began. That was that portion of it. But it was writing things down in a notebook that came to me. And I'm like, I don't know why I want to do this or how I'm even going to do it. But it was something that I knew, that eventually I wanted to do. And I
Mhm.
forgot all about it. Like once I started doing the meetings and I started, the other aspect of the business, I completely forgot that I had wrote all that down.
Do you still have the journal?
I do not. I've been trying to find it.
Oh, Michelle, come on. You gotta find the
I've been
journal,
trying to find
man.
it. So that was that part of my journey.
Mhm.
And as I said, everything Allah puts us through things because we have to get to the point where we need to be. So that part of my life was a very rough period of my life,
Mhm.
but it led me to mind, body, and spirit women's wellness. So even though you might feel that you're going through something and you don't understand why am I going through this stuff, because at that point I was like, I'm about to be divorced. I'm about to have to leave. Like it was like boom, boom, boom. All this stuff was going on in my life.
Mhm.
And then the pandemic hit.
Child, that tested everybody's faith.
So we had the meetings. We were doing the meetings on a monthly basis because we needed to have some type of outlet. We couldn't really go outside. We couldn't, do anything else. So we needed to have some type of way to talk to each other so that we won't go crazy.
Yeah,
But
Mother Earth put us on punishment. She said, settle down. Mm-mm. Go in the house. Nope.
so and it was fine because it gave us the opportunity to go back to connecting with each other, which we completely forgot because
Mhm.
and we don't have to actually look at people or talk to people. I mean, it was over Zoom, but we still had the
That's
communication.
connectivity. Yeah. Like it still felt like you were engaging with another human being opposed to like text and no, FaceTime.
Email.
Yeah, email, like things where you can kind of hide behind what you're saying. So
Exactly. So I
yeah.
call that chapter one. That was chapter one.
So
So
for
then we
any
moved to chapter two.
all right, well, let's get to chapter two.
Chapter two was when we were in the midst of the pandemic, and I was faced with a choice by my previous employer and the choice was either you have to be vaccinated or you have to be placed on leave without pay.
Mhm.
Um, and I contemplated it and I sat down at my desk, and I remember vividly I was sitting at my desk and I was crying because I was like, well, God, why am I not supposed to do this? Like, because it wasn't just, it was in my spirit. It wasn't that I just said, you know what, I'm just going to be defiant and I don't want the man to tell me what I could do and what I can't do. It was in my spirit. Like, I felt like in my spirit, no.
So
So,
talk a little bit more about that. So cuz I we went through a phase in the pandemic where the country was really really divided, and still for whatever reason some of the logic doesn't make sense. But the pandemic and getting vaccinations was really really controversial, and knowing you personally and seeing you navigate that situation, I always wondered, like, what what it was like in your mind. Like you mentioned that it was really like your spirit was saying this, and it wasn't like a coming from a place of defiance. So it really put you in a place where you really had to lean into your faith with Allah. And I just, like we're human, and so there's the fleshly part of you, there's your more of spiritual, and like that part of yourself. And how was all of that working together?
It was hard because I had the part of me that was like, well, you need to have a way to sustain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to keep a roof over your head. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a son, so I'm like, what am I doing? But in the end, I made the decision not to.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, like I say, that was chapter 2 of my life, where I was living in other people's houses. I was sleeping on couches.
Mm-hmm.
I was put out of people's houses. But I don't know why, but for everybody has their own reasons, and sometimes my spirit is not for everybody, and I know that. I know my spirit is not for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and for those people that are in that place where they understand, everybody will understand that your spirit is not for everybody. Not everybody is going to take to your spirit, and that's fine. We're not all meant to like each other in that way where you want to be around each other all the time, and that's
I'm gonna
okay.
pause you right there, and I'm gonna ask you to run it back one more time for the people in the back, because I feel like that's a very, very important point that you're making, and a little bit of transparency. Like we've kind of talked about it outside of this forum, but I struggled with that for a while, just like really allowing what other people were saying and thinking, like really mandate how I live my life. And it was so restrictive and heavy. And it just put me in such a state of like disarray and despair. I couldn't focus. And at the time we were kind of going through stuff together
Simultaneous.
simultaneously, similar tracks, similar tracks, similar paths. And I just, but our lives are a little bit different. I don't have a child, and I didn't have as much going on. Like my responsibility was just me and my cat. And I always wondered what it was like for you, not just in your thought process, but like emotionally going through that transition and really having to lean into your faith. And really at this time, knowing you, I realized that you were going through a transition in your faith at that time too. So there was a lot converging all at once.
And I just was having this conversation with somebody, at work, because like I said, I'm very transparent. And the question was asked to me about, like, what did she ask me? She asked me about when I about Islam, like how did I come to it? And I told her, I was like, really funny story. I was actually dressing modest and covering my hair for 2 years
Mhm.
before I even. So it was like a process. That's why I said I'm a firm believer that where you are is a process, is steps. It's always your journey. Like I said, your journey is not my journey, and everybody has a different journey. The reason why I went through what I went through, because that was my journey, and I had to go through all those things in order to be this person today, because I was not this person, and it was a process.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the process, like the you've kind of gone over the practical things in act 1 and act 2, and I know part of act 3 too, so we'll get there. um, which I'm assuming is here today now. But like emotionally, where what what was what was that like for you? Like how did that ebb and flow? Because I imagine that all the changes that I saw you going through it ain't for no suckers. It ain't for no punks. So
No.
emotion. What just in case there's someone here or someone watching that might be able to get some comfort or just kind of know that this is while this journey may feel solo, it is not it is not, and there are people that have been through it and can give you some inspiration and just a little bit more hope to move forward.
What would I say? So I would say that if you're down, you could only go up. So
It's true.
there's nowhere else to go. You can only
It's
go
true.
up. So I was at the low with nowhere to
Well,
live.
you know,
So every little step.
there's something really powerful about I I'm sure there's some kind of I haven't been in my psychology journals and stuff recently, but and no, not a psychologist, y'all. Just nosy and curious. But there's something to that hitting rock bottom effect. Like there's a power in realizing that the absolute worst that could happen to you in your mind, because the absolute worst can look different for everyone. Like
That's
for
true.
me, I never imagined that my life would have been as much of a roller coaster, is tossed about as it has been since I've turned 30. Like it is insane. I've been riding this crazy wave for almost 7 years. And it's just, but when it really, really changed was like that rock bottom, like where
Mhm.
I had faced the worst thing for me personally. Like there's, for some people, getting sick. I mean, of course, for most people, dying would be the worst thing that could happen. But outside of that, some people it's getting sick. Some people it's being alone. Other people it's, just not having that life that you were conditioned to have. And then discovering along the way as you unravel and unpack all of that and be like, well, that sucked, that didn't work, and going through the pain and the growth that comes with that. Like there really is something powerful to saying, well, elevators at the ground floor.
Nowhere else
Can't
to
go
go
no-
but up.
it can't go nowhere else.
And
This
I
is
would say, and every day, I'm not gonna sit here and say that every day I'm like, oh,
good,
we
good,
all
good.
we all have our times where we get to the point where we're down and we need a minute because we need to get
Mhm,
it back together, and then you come back and you're like, all right, ain't nowhere else to go but up.
mhm,
And I would say to keep faith. It's not if and then I start thinking about like other people, like the true story today. I was feeling like, oh my goodness, like, at this point in my life, I should have this. And I don't know why, but I decided to go and look at a women's shelter website.
mhm,
And I started looking at like the things that they were asking for and the things that they needed. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that was for me to see. Like, you're not there. So you need to be grateful because I have no clue why I went onto that site. I went onto that site and I'm looking around and then by the time I finished, I was like, you know what? I need to reach out to this woman to see, what I have to do to, get involved. But that really was like a light bulb moment to me. Like, you were about to be here. You're
mhm.
not here. So, take that as, a blessing and understand that you're not at that point because I was at that point at one moment.
And that's part of that journey. And let's get on to chapter 3, the next
So
phase.
So chapter 3, so mind, body, and spirit women's wellness. We started with the women's wellness groups, and then I trained to be a labor and postpartum doula, which I really haven't. I have a full-time job, so it was hard to dive into that. But I do have a line of Bath and Body products that I make, and along that journey, I started vending when I didn't have a means of income. I started vending. I started finding places to vend when I was out here because I am originally from New Jersey. So when
Mhm.
I moved down here, I started looking at different events to see where I could vend at. And I was vending, and I remember this day because it was freezing cold. It was it was when I tell you it was cold, it was cold. My stuff on my table blew off. The
No.
stuff that I had on my table blew off the table. And I remember thinking like, is it gonna get any worse today?
I've learned to not ask that question. Not after
And
mom.
then I had my business cards on the table, and my cards blew, and it blew right in. My business cards blew all the way down, and it blew down
See, that's
to my card.
what happens when you ask, is there anything else? Nope, nope. You just say thank you for that. I'm good. I'm good. All right. It's funny. We good.
Oh my goodness. So it moved down, and my car actually blew in front of my now mate that Amanda knows, and he was vending, and he picked up my cars, and he's like, I think this is yours. So he was actually vending while I was there. And I say like I've never experienced someone, loving me like that. That this is the first time in my life that I feel like, what, this person really loves me. And I remember, as far as the because he's Muslim, and I remember like he would be praying, and I'm like, that sounds so beautiful, and it sounded familiar. It felt like something that I heard before, and I couldn't understand. I'm like, why does this sound so familiar to me, and why does it feel like home? Like, why does this is calling? It felt like it was calling me to it. And I started asking a little bit of questions here and there, because that's how you do when you want to find out. You ask questions. So I would ask like, little, I asked a question here. I'm like, so what's this, and what is that? What does that mean? And and
Mhm.
he would answer me. He would answer all my questions. And I remember telling him like, well, I'm not gonna be converting. Don't think I'm gonna convert.
I remember,
And he said
and I didn't believe you then, but I remember that.
and he said, what did he tell me? It was along the lines of, it is if it is the will of Allah, then it will be. But
Mhm.
it's not. It wasn't for him to try to push it on me, and he never did. He never did. He never, said, "Hey, come on, you gotta do this." Never. And I know there's like some a misconception about Muslim men, and people think that, oh, they be controlling the women and all this stuff. I mean, that could be true for some, just like it could be true for any population, but that was not true, of him. Like, he was never like that type. And I remember thinking like, this don't seem like what people, what you hear from people.
Yeah.
So it was very different for me. And I've never had like that type of course I had it from like you,
Mhm.
that support, as far as like, go ahead, follow your dreams, do your business. But as far as the spouse part, I didn't have that like push, like, go ahead, you could do it. Every day it's, you got to believe in yourself, you can do it. And it makes a difference. It truly makes a difference.
A little bit more like, what did that do for you? Because I know what you shared with me about your the prelude of this current path that you're on, and how difficult
Mhm.
that was for you. How has it helped you? Like, how has it changed you? How has it helped you? And how much have you seen yourself grow since experiencing and really leaning into the type of relationships around you, romantic, familial friendships, since you've started really following your authentic path?
So I had to learn that everybody is not going to be who I want them to be. because sometimes we say, well, how come they did that? And I don't understand why they did that. And we can't expect people to be what we want them to be,
So
because then you're always going to be disappointed. You can't want somebody to be something that you want. And
great.
I had to learn that in every relationship, you can expect someone to be what you want. And I've had like people disappoint me. And I had to look and I'm like, well, they didn't change. That was always that person. What was the problem was that I was wanting that person to be somebody different. But the person, in every aspect, every relationship, the person is always the person that you see.
Mm,
It's what you are putting on them to be.
mm.
And when they don't live up to that, that's when the problem comes. And I had to really like realize like that's what the problem is with people in general. That's
Yeah.
what all of our problems are. Because when we start looking to people to be something that we want them to be, and when they don't, we get mad.
Yeah, especially when it's something that we expect them to be that fills a hole that we ourselves need to fill. Like
I
those
have
are the most
exactly
disappointing relationships. And I'm not sure if this happened with you, but again, kindred spirits, so similar. I think we was in the same classroom. If this was school of life, we was in the same class. We was in the same class. We had slightly different answers on the test, but we was in the
same
same
class.
class. But but
Silly.
noticed that when I started really doing like the very difficult, daunting task of really addressing what I was trying to get from those people, like really thinking about why I was placing those expectations on those people and identifying the need that I got from said expectations, I stopped caring as much. Like I started, it really, that's when it really clicked into this thick skull. Oh no, they've always been that way. You was tripping because you needed this, but they were never going to give you that. But now it's easier to just let people be who they're gonna be.
Let
And when
people
I say people, let people be, let them do it.
let them be who they're gonna be. And that's why I said like I always say like I haven't had any like experience like, you know, with like terrible like knockdown drag out like relationships with people or friendships or spouses. Like I haven't had that. I've had like disappointments and people are not what I wanted them to be. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad people. That just means that they weren't people for me. Because like I said, my spirit not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And
That's
everybody
really
not.
important to that's really important for people to recognize though. It's like sometimes it don't work because you trying to put jelly and coconut oil together. Like that don't work. That you know what I'm saying? Like you taking this basic jelly, you know what I'm saying, and you putting it with this coconut oil that's supposed to be used with fine cuisine. Well,
Not gonna work.
is not, and it's I'm very proud of seeing so many people, especially Black people, really leaning into getting therapy and getting help for themselves so that we can break that pattern. Because I think the hardest part of dealing with this kind of journey and like going through all of these changes, things being taken away from you and difficult relationships and just the growing pains of becoming authentic, you really have to take a look at yourself and be like, well, hmm, is it everybody or is it me? And that's not to say that even when you realize the you in it, you're not a villain. It's just a habit or a thing that you just have
There
to
you
realize you got to shift. Like for people pleasers or people that are less confident in themselves, like if you keep running into somebody that, you know, takes advantage of you or takes you for granted or is like abusive or just is not an unequitable or unhealthy relationship, and you keep running into it, and it's not just, with you and your romantic relationships, but then it's also you start realizing, no, I got this issue with this person, I got this issue with family, I got this issue with friends. You know what? This ain't really looking right. And like sitting with I for a little while was embarrassed because I'm like, now I know that I know what I know to be true about me. I don't take stuff like this, but I didn't take it off of strangers, but I always took it off of people that I loved and cared about.
go.
It was emotionally invested in. And then when I decided, maybe I should look at me, Manda, because I'm sick of this, realized
That's
I'm
when it
through.
changed.
Like I went through around the time that we met, I was going through a string of just, when I tell you, lemony snicket friendships, relationships, family was acting crazy. Like there was not work was crazy. There was not a part of my life where I was like not analyzing it. Like, wait, wait a
What's
minute.
going on?
What's going on? Like, no, no, actually it's me. It's me. I gotta change. I gotta be more willing to advocate and adjust and be who I am and not be afraid of people getting upset. They get upset they at worst they never speak to me again.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be okay with it. And I realized that that was for me too. I didn't have, and I'm still learning the boundaries part. Like a lot of times I don't set boundaries. So people, how would you know if I never set the boundary?
That's true. That's true. That's true. Because I'm
I've
doing.
seen people that say like, let me give you an example. You work somewhere
Mm-hmm.
and somebody always giving you stuff. You always just take it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you see somebody else and they ask them, well, can you do this? And they're like, no, I don't have the capacity for that. And they move on because that person set a boundary and they like, okay, and they won't ask them again. That's it. That's it. I'm not asking again because that person said they don't have the capacity. So I know I can't come to them, 5 minutes later with something else because they already told me they don't have the capacity for it. You know what I'm
So
saying?
yeah. So when you learned that lesson for yourself, like what happened that made you realize, oh no, 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 I got this. I got this. Like I really have reached that place where I have the boundaries and I'm good. Like when was it where you was just like, I did
Well,
that?
I'm still learning it. I'm still learning it. But
You are.
I've seen people do it and I'm like, okay, okay.
No, you did. You have done it. You have put up boundaries. That staff meeting where you was like, you know what, I'm gonna take some time for myself, and then they got some get right. They got powwow and they got some get right. So please take. It's really
Okay,
okay,
so I do it's baby step boundaries, but I do
and
take
that's
boundaries.
the
But
important.
I'm also a mother hen. So then that, so that doesn't work when you're a mother hen and you like, okay, I need this because I need it to go right.
My little fur baby, but I totally resonate with mother hen energy. But it's important and I want to continue to encourage you to keep doing this, like that baby steps. It's a real thing. Like really
Mhm.
just take I'm I remember my aunt Gina, she was talking to me and I don't even know if she realized how much this touched my soul. Because at the time I was like really learning how to love on myself and like give to myself just like I would give to other people. And I don't know why she came up with this story, but one day she and I were talking. She was like, yeah, I really had to start learning how to love myself. And so what I do is when I go to the store and buy somebody something, I don't care if it's a baby shower gift, I will buy myself a stick of gum so that I myself with giving to someone else, so that I always remember that I am also worthy of receiving just like I give. So to never
Mm-hmm.
forget myself in that process of giving and to celebrate yourself. So like when you do these baby steps, that's your stick of gum. Like, oh, no, you didn't tell somebody right away, no, I don't have the capacity, but you know what? You did it with actions. Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there was a
that's
time
true.
where you, just like you were talking about the women in the homeless shelter, there was a time where you weren't able to do that. And
That's true.
the more you do it, the more you reinforce it. And before long, sorry, can't do it. And when you get real good like me, you can just look at people and they know, don't. No, not this time. No, not this one. Not today. I don't like that face. Never mind. Never mind. I'll go. Cool. I'll do it myself. So be proud of yourself. That's for someone who has come from where you've come. You may not think you've made big strides, but this story and how you talked about, you wrote in the journal how you wanted to have a business and do this. And it's only 2023. It's only been 3 years, not even a full three. How far you've come. You lost your job. Now you have a business and you have a full-time job. You didn't have a home. Now you have a place and a partner, two
Mm-hmm.
buildings. And that was
Very true.
3 years of brave little baby steps that you've done. So I'm gonna put you on the spot and I'm gonna ask you to celebrate and acknowledge and give yourself a pat on the back and a round of applause for doing that.
Give myself a pat on the back.
And y'all
Thank
too
you
out
very
there, I ain't forget about y'all. I ain't forget y'all was out there on the screen. You do it too. Whatever it is that you've done that you would have never saw yourself doing, even if it's just a little bit, just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Pat yourself on the back because that's what growth looks like. Growth is not always big. Sometimes it's just those small, little brave baby steps that snowball into a life that you never thought you'd live, a version of yourself you never thought you'd see, but you did it. You showed up for yourself. So good for y'all, and fantastic for you, Miss Michelle, because I've seen the growth personally. And with
Thank you.
that, I do you have anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
So I don't have anything else, but I do want to leave just one little nugget, and I just want people to, whenever you have that little thought in your mind or something that you think you might want to do, that's what you're supposed to do. You know, sometimes we say, okay, well, I was thinking about this and I thought about that a long time ago, but that's gonna be a lot of work, and I don't know if anybody gonna like it. But that is your seed. That's your seed. So you have to do something with it, and don't hold on to it, because I was writing in a notebook at 2019, and then I started the women's wellness group and the business, and all this was a notebook. And unbeknownst to me, and I had absolutely no clue where it came from, and I was just writing these ideas down. And if it's something that I'm a firm believer that if it's a part of your calling and a part of what it is that you're meant to do, the doors will open for you to do it. Amanda knows personally with the Women's Wellness Group, there are plenty of times where I have absolutely no topic, no speaker, and then I'll meet somebody and they're like, okay, I'll do it. And and I'm like, okay, really?
Or we learn how to delegate and ask our friends to do it.
So it happens. If it's part of what you were put on this earth to do, the doors will open for you to do it. And it might crack a little. Don't get mad if the door don't open all the way on the first shot. It might be a little crack at first.
You get
So
your
don't
big
get upset
toe
and give up.
when you get your big toe in that door, just know you're on your way. Well, that ladies and gentlemen, please listen to this woman. That is not toilet soup. That is grade A cream of crab with a jumbo lump kind of advice. And I really hope you take it. And I will have a link in the description box for Michelle and in her business and the women's wellness group, so that if you ever are curious or looking for a community, this community of women really had a life altering impact on my life. It wasn't like we were having these super serious conversations, but it really was a space for us to be ourselves and really learn, grow, and heal in an authentic way. So if you are able and just have even just a little mustard seed of interest, I really encourage you to buy her stuff because it's fantastic. But also support the women's wellness group. It changed my life, and I know that it will change yours. And with that, I want to thank again Michelle. Thank you. Appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
and sharing your story and giving us that amazing toilet soup. I hope y'all remember, y'all mind your business. And until I thank you, I love you. God keep you all. Until next time.